This story was taken from a message board and is not verified. Before I get to the story, I'd like to tell you a bit about myself. I'm a 46-year-old male from the UK. I have a full-service army career with some punchy operational deployments. Without sounding like a dick, I'm fairly tough. I tend to run towards trouble if it arises. I'm not scared of much. I've spent the last few years working as a groundsman for a very lovely property very close to where I live. It's a large house with substantial gardens, huge lawn, orchards, walled gardens, and woodland. It's also a B&B with 3 rooms, and it's used for wakes and weddings. There probably isn't an inch of the gardens that I haven't cut, pruned, or landscaped over the last few years. I work alone and I'm totally content with being by myself. Sometimes I wear headphones, sometimes I like the peace and quiet. Occasionally I see guests, usually in the mornings after breakfast, but more often than not I see no one all day. So one day, I'm cutting back some rhododendron bushes on either side of some paths. They're thick bushes and the paths are almost like tunnels, so fairly dark and shady even on sunny days. I tend to work for 45 minutes to an hour and then I have a quick smoke and a coffee break. So I put down the tools and I head up the path towards a bench where I take a 5-minute break. As the path bends round, it opens up into a sort of clearing where the bench is. I had my headphones on playing music. As I approach the clearing, I see a man standing completely still. The immediate thing that looked odd was that he was only an inch from the bushes, like a kid that's been told to face a wall, and that his trousers were too short. I pulled my earphones out and said something like, "Sorry, I didn't see you there." Then the weird stuff happened. Instantly, the whole atmosphere felt wrong. There was this really heavy, still feeling in the air, and less the tiny music from my earphones, it went silent. Like, totally silent. I stopped in my tracks. I cannot describe in words the feeling of utter terror that fell over me. The man radiated absolute threat. Maybe you'd call it evil. I just knew if he turned to face me, it would be a bad thing. It was obvious he was old. His suit didn't fit and his arms looked too long. I wish I could describe him better, but I backed out of there as quickly as I could. I never once took my eyes off him. I had this feeling that if I did, it would be trouble. To cut the rest of the story short as possible, I put in a loop around the gardens to a metal workshop on the grounds where I persuaded some welders to come back with me to figure this out. They were taking a piss pretty hard, but they could see I was shaking. And when we got to the clearing, they weren't exactly rushing in. Anyway, the guy wasn't there. The air was back to normal and the birds were singing. I wish I could say there was a burnt patch of grass or something, but there simply was no sign of anything weird. You know, maybe it was an old guest, maybe it was something very different. But all I know is I've never felt that frightened in all of my years of service. It was like no training could prepare me for something like this. Has anyone had experience with something like this? It's beyond bizarre. It's 3 a.m.